Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, where meaningful conversations inspire leadership, connection, and possibility. Hosted by Dr. Summer Watson, this internationally recognized podcast features women who are making an impact in business, community, education, healthcare, and beyond. Through honest stories and practical wisdom, we explore what it means to lead, grow, and thrive in a rapidly changing world. And now, your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Welcome to the Core Women Podcast. I'm so excited to welcome Becky Estby, who is the CEO of Next Monday, leadership consultant, executive coach, and author of the upcoming book, Uncommon Courage. After a successful career as a senior HR and organizational development executive, Becky shifted her focus to helping high-achieving women navigate leadership, belonging, and personal fulfillment. Through coaching, peer groups, events, and consulting, she supports women who may look successful from the outside, but are quietly questioning whether the path they're on aligns with who they are. Today, we'll explore courage, leadership, authenticity, and what it means to redefine success on your own terms. Welcome, Becky.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you here. Okay, so before we dive in, if you could describe your life to this point in one word, what would that word be, and why is that word important to you?
Yeah, I think if I had to describe my life in one word, it would be courageous. So I was the youngest of six growing up on a dairy farm. Very traditional farm family. Girls and boys had their roles. And being the youngest, everyone wanted me to be the guinea pig and do things for them. So I think I learned very early that I had to have some courage and stand up for myself and have a voice. Being a small town farm girl, introvert, going into the corporate world, I really recognized early that I was going to have to stand up for myself. And so it really laid that foundation. And I would define my career as those defining moments in my career were really acts of courage.
I absolutely love that. Acts of courage. Those were defining moments. And we're going to talk more about those. So, what inspired you to create what you're doing now, next Monday, and focus specifically on supporting women leaders?
All right. So I was in corporate environments for 30 plus years, and I will say I loved it. I loved leading. I loved being a part of a team. I loved working. I actually very much enjoyed working. But throughout my entire career, I had those tugs on me. And every time I felt a little bit like I was not as happy as I wanted to be, I always wanted to own my own business. And that tug just kept coming at me. And then later in my career, I had been in human resources all my career, done every aspect of leading people and strategy for organizations on the people side. But I started later in my career, I got my coaching certification and was really enjoying leadership development. I had an opportunity to bring the work of an author into our organization, and it was a 4-year journey on leadership and really started to wanting to have employees have a good experience in their work and go home at night and talk at the dinner table, not about something their boss did bad, but something that was really a good experience. And so I started sitting in benefits meetings thinking, I want to poke my eyes out, not because I couldn't do it, but it wasn't where the passion was anymore. So I wanted to listen to that. During that leadership program, I was in a program with Michelle Pape, who owned Next Monday, and I had been in her peer group, which I just loved. I loved every aspect of what she brought to women. And through that, she started journaling that she wanted to retire early because her husband was older. She was going to sell her business. And I was starting to feel like I've got to have impact for women and do something different. And you have the business that I really want. And so it just became a conversation of, what about me, Michelle? Would you consider me? And we talked and we became partners. And then I owned it for a time by myself and recently took on a partner. And our goal is really just to help women navigate all that we've navigated in our careers and maybe make it a little bit easier along the way and show them how in community and with other women and in a safe, non-judgmental environment that you can really grow and succeed in your career per your definition and no one else's.
I absolutely can understand that. So thank you for sharing that evolution, that transition of why you're doing what you do today. So you work with women who are often highly successful, but feel unseen or exhausted. I know we've probably all been there at some point. What are some of the most common struggles you see behind the scenes?
I've met countless women, and many of their stories are actually in my book, where women tend to give their all. They're caretakers, they give it all away to everybody else, and they overcompensate. 70% of women feel like they're an imposter and that they're not capable. So they overcompensate by giving more and working harder and harder to the point of exhaustion. And at some point, when it's not working for them within the system they're in, they're not getting the traction, they're not feeling fulfilled, they're just feeling plain tired and exhausted, even though they're giving to everybody. At some point, there's this risk of burnout, and they start saying, it must be me. And so I think our natural inclination as women is, what am I doing wrong? Instead of saying, maybe the environment I'm in isn't evolving, and maybe I need to speak up or have courage or do something, ask myself some questions to figure out how I can change the circumstances I'm in. And so our goal is to really, work with women and help them see that they are capable, talented. They were the day they walked into the situation, and they still are, but how can they get back to their true selves?
I so appreciate that because many of us have been there. But my question for you is, how do women even recognize this? How do they recognize this to be able to help themselves kind of step into what they truly are passionate about or what fulfills them?
Unfortunately, they don't always recognize it very quickly. And they just keep trying the same thing, working harder and harder and harder, right? And so the way that they can start recognizing it is by having some trusted people that you can talk with that can help point out, hey, you're going up in flames here, you're burning out, but also paying attention to the physical symptoms, because the physical symptoms happen faster than probably our mind can tell us that we're exhausted or that something's not right. The headaches, the tension in the shoulders, the dread, those things that start being medical issues. I see women going to all these doctor's appointments trying to figure out what's medically wrong. And the truth is, it's just stress. It's pure stress and exhaustion, and something has to give.
Yeah. True words, those physical symptoms, your body speaking to you before being able to truly identify what it is, right? But your body is telling you. Your body
Right.
is saying, hey, listen, there's something going on. I can give an example of this. I was working in the medical field. I was working around the clock pretty much, not just doing shift change, but running 3 departments, going in at all different times of the day and night if needed. Finally, my body said, enough. You're completely exhausted. I woke up one morning, my eye was completely red, and I'm like, what is it, like pink eye or something? Go to the doctor. They're like, it's not pink eye, it's an inflammatory issue. You need to go to a rheumatologist. That point, multiple tests, it triggered that stress, that exhaustion triggered lupus in my body,
Oh, wow.
a ton of inflammation because of that stress, working
Yeah.
around the clock and not recognizing or not stopping. And that was me working in the medical field, right?
Right.
So so it happens. It happens to the best of us. So to slow down, to take that pause, to recognize those physical symptoms before you actually realize what is happening. And so thank you for pointing that out because that is so important. I think that really is telling when your body is speaking to you and we're not listening.
Right.
So, your book, it's titled Uncommon Courage. How do you define uncommon courage and why do women need it now more than ever?
So, uncommon courage, the word kept coming to me, and I call it uncommon because I feel like one of the biggest missing leadership qualities is courage. I spent years in leadership meetings where leaders who were the senior leaders said they were going to be courageous. They were going to speak their mind. They were going to stand up for what they wanted. And then the CEO walks in and says something different. And all of a sudden, miraculously, everyone's on board with what the CEO said. I had an individual in my office 5 minutes before a meeting. He was fist pounding and saying he was going to stand up, and then he completely did a 360, and then the head went down. And I've been in situations where leadership teams should have done the right thing and didn't. And again, the heads went down and they knew they should have taken the right action, but they didn't want to stand up and have courage because it can cost you something. And for women, I think that, they are spending all this time maybe feeling unseen, maybe unheard. It is different to be a woman in often a male environment. And, if a woman feels like she's got one of 10 skills, she won't go for it. A male will go for it if he's got, just one of the 10. And so women can get hidden and unseen, and yet they work harder and harder. They probably invest more time. And so I really wrote the book for women to maybe be awakened to what's going on, that maybe it isn't me, maybe it is the system, maybe others feel this way too. And then a shift to courage in that you can find your voice, you can find a way, a path forward, and you can have courage and stand up. And that might require some risk, but you have to ask, there's a payoff to taking that risk. And then finally, finding some peace. If you're feeling misaligned, feeling to be a misfit, feeling like I don't have the confidence to stand up, the book kind of takes you on a journey to try to, in the end, find some peace. Where can you find that alignment and feel at peace?
I love how you start with the awakening,
Mm-hmm.
then the shift to courage, then taking the risk, and then finding peace. Those
Mm-hmm.
are actionable steps.
Yes.
Those are important to be able to take those back into a system, whether or not that's your family system, because things happen in the family system
Yeah.
as well. And those are probably some of the hardest, right? Things
Right.
to recognize and then also confront and have the courage to confront. And then our working systems, our professional systems. How do we do that? Well, here's a roadmap to doing that. And I love roadmaps because you can at least try the steps. You can alter the steps a little bit that work better for you in a certain way. So that's why I love these type of books because they actually talk about situations,
Mm-hmm.
how to recognize, how to have that awareness. And you could have been having an awareness for the last 3 years, but didn't do anything
Mm-hmm.
about it, right? And so
Right.
that shift to courage, that's extremely important because, based on my research, what I find is men and women who are unhappy in a situation, especially in a professional situation, they've already been planning their time to leave that situation, right? And they've been planning it for several months before they actually do it.
Yeah.
And they have these thoughts in their head and they rationalize, oh, but these people need me. My team needs me. I can't lead them. Yes, I have these skills, but oh my gosh, what would they do without me?
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you have a roadmap for people because that roadmap, you may be somewhere in that roadmap, but just having that courage to take each of those steps is so important. And many women assume they are the problem. They feel stuck, they feel dissatisfied. But why do you think that happens? And how can they begin shifting that narrative?
I talk a lot about community in the book and finding your people. And so sometimes we're fighting systems or feeling like we're misaligned or a misfit. We're trying to solve that problem and get accepted or change the circumstances, but we're not aligning with people who can tell us the truth, who will love us, the good and the bad, who we can say out loud the things that we are shameful of or we think we're shameful of and we shouldn't be. And so, I do talk about find those people so that you can have some relief, whether that's through a peer group or confidants, that those people that they have your back no matter what and you can trust. And then the rest of it starts to become less important. It gives you a way to have some people that are going to tell you the truth and they're going to support you at the same time. It might be 3 to 5 people. It doesn't have to be a large group, but if you can't really identify those, that's a starting point. Who are those people? And start finding that 3 to 5 that you can really rely on.
That's such a great tip. So, what role does belonging play in leadership, and how can women create a stronger sense of belonging without sacrificing authenticity?
Yeah, so sometimes you have to change your style a little bit to fit the situation, and that's okay. That's not sacrificing. But if you find yourself always trying to sacrifice because you want a group to accept you, that's not the right approach. You need to go after, again, those spaces and those places where you can be your natural self. And sometimes you have to create those rooms and stop worrying about being invited into the rooms where maybe you're never going to feel like you belong.
I really appreciate that. Create your own rooms. Sometimes you've just got to do that because maybe that's not the right fit for you, those other rooms. And that's okay. And feeling okay about that, I think, is that hurdle a lot of times, right?
Right.
So if somebody was to pick up your book today, Uncommon Courage, what's one thing you would want them to leave with?
I want them to leave with maybe that feeling of I'm not alone. I've experienced some of these things. I appreciate the stories of these women who have put themselves out there in the book and their vulnerability and realizing that, there's power in being vulnerable and sharing your story. And then there's real power in going after what is truly going to be in alignment with your values and your passions versus staying in situations where it's just sucking the joy right out of you and that impacts you at work, it impacts your family. You don't know how bad it's affecting your family until you leave or change the circumstance, and then your family says, "Wow, welcome back." And
Right.
you didn't know you were gone, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, my wish is that the book helps women, especially women in the throes of their career. You go through those 20 and 30, you're climbing and climbing, and it's at the heart of growing a family. And it's a hard time, and you feel like you got to keep on because, your career is at risk. But I just want them to realize that there's ways to make that easier for them.
That's so important. And I would also piggyback on that. What you said earlier is recognizing your own health and well-being,
Hmm.
which is so important because you can't give to anybody else to include your family until you actually recognize your own health and well-being. And you might be giving, 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 but you're really giving on fumes, those fumes you're living off of. And it's not the best energy. So we've covered so much. As we come to the close of the interview, what guidance would you give to a woman who has achieved many of her goals, but is questioning what success means for her next chapter?
Great question. I think so often we're chasing a definition of success, somebody else's definition. And often that is the traditional thinking that it's the big paycheck, the big title. Yet I would invite women to really do some soul searching and, what's that thing that's been tugging at them for years? What's that passion thing? And it might have nothing to do with what they're currently doing. And then just start entertaining, being open to some opportunities to maybe dabble in that area and start envisioning what could that next chapter look like and talk it through with other people. Find some people that have some thoughts and wisdom and a peer group or other ways to really start navigating like what do I keep going back to year after year or it keeps pinging me every time I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. And having that courage to say, maybe I need to make a pivot and realizing that your identity doesn't have to be in a job title. Your identity is all the talent and skill you've built up, and you can use that in many different ways. And you don't leave that behind no matter what you leave. So you take that forward and use that to the best of your ability to have impact on others and to really do what you want to do, what would be enjoyable for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Becky, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
Thank you, Summer. This was very delightful. Thank you.
Thank you. You can connect with Becky Estby on LinkedIn at Becky Estby or next Monday at next-monday.com.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast. If today's conversation resonated with you, subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who may benefit from it. To learn more about Dr. Summer Watson, visit corewomen.com, where you'll find leadership and organizational development consulting, mentorship solutions, virtual assistant services through Core Business Solutions, the Human Forward Movement, and the Human Room, a space for meaningful conversations about keeping people at the center of leadership, business, and community. Dr. Watson is also available to facilitate and moderate engaging one-on-one interviews, panel discussions, and group conversations that inspire connection, learning, and action. Until next time, lead with purpose, connect with intention, and remember to put people first and on purpose.